Now that we saw how to use a form to create a new record in your data source, let's understand a little bit better what composes a form and how we can use it. Here we have our form, and we can see here in the tree view that if we expand the form, we have several cards inside it. We can see that if I click on the name, for example, on my first click, it shows cards name. And if I click in the email, it will show card email. So as we can see, the form is composed of cards, and each card represents a field in the data source. If we expand one of the cards, we can see that we have four elements inside it, four controls. We have the data card key, that's the label with the title of the data cards. We have the input, that's in this case is a text input, but it could be a date picker, for example, or a dropdown. That's the input where the user will put information. And we have two other labels. One that's star visible, that's an asterisk that will show when the item is required, when that card is set as required, which you're going to see soon. And also an error message that will show when there are any errors happening during the form usage. For example, if the user tries to submit a form that has a required field, the message will appear on that field saying that's required. Okay, so let's take a look at the department data card that we have a different input type. If I expand the department data card, we see here the data card value 10. That's a drop-down because in this case it's a drop-down input. Creating and editing a video like this gives me a lot of work. And I just ask you to subscribe, like and leave your comments to support the next videos. Let's go back to the lesson. Let's now make the name and the email fields required and see that that required star will appear. In order to do that, we need to select the card. So I'm going to just click once to select the whole card, and I can go to Advanced, and we can see that the required field is here and it's set to false. If I try to select the field here to change in the required property, notice that I cannot do it and it says the card is locked, the property is locked. I need to go back to Advanced and click on Unlock to change properties. Once I click on it, I can then change this property. So instead of false, I'm going to put true. And then we can see the required star appearing right here. Okay, let's do the same to the email field. So let's click on the email cards. Pay attention to select only the cards. Click on unlock and then change the required to true. I'm changing here in the panel, the right panel in this case. Okay, didn't take the true yet. Sometimes there's a delay. I usually like to click in the field and then add it here in the top. I feel that's quicker. Okay, now the email is also required and I can try submitting a new form without filling these fields, and we can see that it won't submit until we do it and the error message will appear. Let's try. I'm going to click on play. Let's just go back and forth. So it calls the new form function as we saw in the previous class. Now let me just put other information here. Leave the name empty. It's just autofilled. I didn't want that. Okay. In this case, the name is empty. Let's see. Save. It shows name is required. And also we got this message saying there was a problem saving your data. Remember, we put this message in the on failure of the form. In the on failure property, we have a notify in there, and that's why it showed that message. Once we fill the name, the error will disappear and I can save. But I'm not going to save. I know it's going to work right now. But let's also remove the email. Okay. And try to submit without the email. We also get the error and it doesn't submit. Okay, let's exit the play mode and let's take a look at something. Remember that in the previous video, we changed these two types of input by just coming here on Edit and changing the type of the control. Notice that now we cannot do this for name and email because we unlocked before to add the required property. Once we unlock, we see that the card loses its properties. We cannot do that anymore because at that moment the card became a custom card and we cannot do that anymore. So usually I don't like to unlock cards unless it's very necessary, and in this case it was necessary because our Excel didn't have this option to put required field in there. If we were working with a different data source, for example, a SharePoint list, we could set the required field directly in the list and it would appear required here, without needing to unlock the cards. Now we have one thing missing, that's showing the departments here. Right now, the app doesn't know what are the departments. If I look at the formula, if I click in the drop down and go to the items, we have parent.allowed items. In this case, parent means the card, since the drop down is inside the card. So it's accessing the allowed values properties of the card. If I click in the cards, then I can see this allowed properties value. Clicking allowed values, we have a formula here that should bring the list of departments, but it doesn't work because the data source in this case is a simple spreadsheet, and we need to replace this with something that will work. In this scenario, we are going to check what are the values in the other table, that's the TB department, and bring those here so the user can select a department from that list. But first, we need to learn a new property of the form that's called update, and we are going to see this in the next video. See you in there.